Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Obviously Outdoorsmen. This is the first episode to the new First Light Talks, or FLTs for short. I'll be waking up at 5 a.m. every morning, recording and uploading as on a regular basis as I could possibly be. The idea of this series is to be up with all my fellow outdoorsmen, either heading to their best or newest fishing spot, driving to their favorite or freshest stand location, the gym rats that are getting after it every morning, or even simply the people that are just enjoying their coffee or on their way to work. You guys get the picture. All that so you guys can listen and eventually watch, but right now just listen, all before first light. Also, soon we will be going live while recording these episodes. If you guys can't wait for them to drop on all the platforms, we will be going live on Instagram soon. But here we are, first episode. Good morning. First thing I want to go over, yesterday I came across a new bear attack in New Jersey. And when you hear bear from New Jersey, you automatically think black bear, because that's all that live there. Now, there will be some color-phased bear or cinnamon-phased bear in New Jersey, so there's still a black bear, but sometimes they appear more brown. But if you just search up NJ Bear Attack, it's the article about the 81-year-old woman that was attacked while attempting to save her dog from a bear. And the third article it's by the New York Post. They have what seems to be a grizzly bear just in the middle of the road. And that's the bear that they have portraying this article. Most of these are just like random black bear stock images that these people have put against our article. But this is just lack of research, and this just goes all along with what 2020 consisted of, was the lack of actual news, and the fact that they have a grizzly bear representing this article is just laughable to me. But essentially, this article, this woman heard her dogs barking and she went outside, and I think there was two bears, and one ran off into the woods and one just stood their ground, and the dogs went to go chase the bear and bark at the bear, and I believe one of the dogs got snatched by the bear, and when the woman went to go yell at it and chase it, the bear actually swatted at her and actually injured her. But the woman survived, and they went back to look for the dog afterwards, and the dog actually was killed by the bear, which is understandable. I mean, bears are predators, and they will do anything for food, and that's just them being natural. And it's funny because the last year the bear hunt in New Jersey was canceled, and all because of Phil Murphy. That was one of his key arguments on getting elected into his position, was that he will stop the bear hunt, and he actually finally succeeded on doing that. But the bear population has doubled from 2019 to 2020, and the number of nuisance bear complaints have also, I believe, doubled from 2019 to 2020. Now, all this info from 2019 to 2020 is not what happened last year, but being that there was no bear hunt last year, you can expect the numbers rose exponentially from 2020 to 2021. But the number of bear complaints or nuisance bears went up from 122 in 2019 to 268 in 2020, and state residents reported 169 bear sightings, and they went up to 349 in 2020. So there are just more and more bear sightings, which is expected. When you take bear's only natural predator out of the equation, the bear's numbers are going to skyrocket. And what's amazing to me is the people that are very desensitized from the fact that we have a lot of bears in New Jersey. I believe it's one of the highest populated states for black bears in the country. And I believe the world record with the bow for black bear came out of New Jersey as well. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's where it is. And everyone loves these bears until something happens. If this woman that just was attacked by the bear, if she was, stop the bear hunt and we don't need any type of bear control, just let them live outside, I guarantee you after this attack to her dogs and after this injury she had, I believe her opinion's going to change. Now, obviously not wipe out the bear population, but it definitely needs some type of control. And I just thought this article was very interesting, and that hopefully soon the bear hunt will be put back into place, even if it's just a 1 week season compared to the 2 week season that we had previously. There was a season in October and a season in December. The October one was an archery, and the December hunt was a shotgun and muzzleloader. So hopefully they come back, even if it's just for 1 week. But the main topic I want to get on today is, are you guys doing absolutely everything possible to better your success rate either as a fisherman or as a hunter? And I want to go into the hunting side first. If you guys even just have one extra trail camera that's sitting in your house on the desk, then your answer is no, you're not doing absolutely everything you could possibly be doing. Absolutely every bit of scouting, even when you're not in the woods, is essential to this. If you guys are trying to get the biggest deer down or biggest bear down, or even just trying to learn where their habits generally are, if they're bedding up in this thicket or they cross by the river by this tree more than down there at the crossing in the river, just every little thing you can learn will better you as a hunter or an outdoorsman. And right now it's January. You guys should be gearing up for shed season, the white-tailed deer shed season, or even elk or any animal that sheds their antler. For me, when I lived in New Jersey, it was all white-tailed deer shed. So you guys should be gearing up for that. It should be, I know I have a buddy that already has 2 deer that dropped their antlers already, and it varies across every deer in every county in the state. But generally, most of the deer have shed their antlers by March. It will start in February, but I've seen deer hold all through April as well and lose midway through April. But the majority of the shed hunting takes place in late February and early March and all through March until it turns into fishing season, especially for New Jersey. As soon as it hit like opening day or trout, that's when I kind of stopped shed hunting. But that is what you guys should be gearing up for. If you guys are gearing up for it and you guys have cameras out trying to figure out what deer are still in the area, or even just trying to capitalize on your winter bow buck if you haven't gotten a tag yet, have your cameras out, especially from the rut going into winter. They are transitioning from their habits. They are more tail related, aka sex related, in October, November, even throughout December. And then once they start going into December, January, February, they are solely based on food. They used a lot of their energy during the rut, and all they could think about is gearing back up and getting themselves fattened up for the winter. So their habits are going to change. Their home range, or their range in general, probably just went from 5, 6, 7, 8, even 10, 15 miles chasing does, looking for a hot doe, all the way down to about maybe 1 or 2 miles, depending on the size of the woods that they have access to. So wherever they are in October, I guarantee you 90% of them deer will not be there in January, February, or whenever they drop their antlers. So just dropping a couple trail cameras out in the woods before they shed their antlers, trying to figure out where they hang out, will help you exponentially. Now, you want to drop these cameras, if they're not cell cameras, well before they actually shed their antlers. But I highly suggest getting cell cameras. That way, if they do shed their antlers, you guys could be there within the hour, realistically, and pick up their antlers before any type of other competition gets in there and potentially picks up your bone. But you want to have these cameras in there, and you don't want to really touch the woods once your cameras are in. You let the camera do the scouting while you are not disturbing the herd. Because if people come through and they start bumping them around, or they bump that deer out of that piece of woods that they've been living in, waiting just to drop their antlers, it could very well, someone goes in, bumps them out with a full set of headgear, They leave, and then they'll be back tomorrow without any antlers, and you have no idea where they are. They could be in someone's backyard, front yard, in front of a company, in a parking lot. I've found them everywhere. And you just want to heighten your chances by knowing where they are as much as possible. So if you know that they still have their antler on January 10th, and then you get a picture of them on the 11th of them with one horn or no horn, then you know that you can go in there and that antler is going to be very close to where your camera is. And if you guys are allowed to bait in your state, like you are in New Jersey and most states in the country, then you can really change or kind of predict their patterns if they're hitting your bait or corn or alfalfa or beans, whatever you're using for bait. If you guys can funnel the deer into your camera and your food source as their primary food source, then you will have much better chances of finding their antlers this season. And if you guys are more interested in a couple more tips on finding more antlers, I think tomorrow's FLT talk will be primarily on this topic of hunting deer from October compared to January. So from the rut to winter, and how they transition and how you guys can be successful at it. But there is a video on our YouTube, obviously Outdoorsmen, of 7 shed hunting tips that are not obvious. So obviously you walk heavy trails and feeding sources and that whole nine. But this video will hopefully help you find more sheds in that aspect. But back to, are you doing everything possible to better your success rate? And even on a simpler terms, are you doing everything possible to better yourself? If you guys aren't hitting the gym for whatever reason, if you say you don't have time, you guys can definitely make time to better yourself personally. And if you guys aren't eating right or you guys have been slacking, just get back to it. Stay healthy. Everything correlates to each other. Being healthy, eating right, going to the gym every morning or every night, whatever your routine is. Having a routine is one of the best things you can have for yourself. Like for me, I wake up every morning. Now I'm going to do this podcast, and then I'm going to go right to the gym. I come home from the gym, and I will eat breakfast and spend time with my fiance, and then I will go to work for 8 to 10 hours, and then when I come back, it's time to have dinner and then relax for the rest of the night for about 4 or 5 hours. Everything's already done. I already went to the gym, and everything, you still want to get everything you want done so you could have more times to do things with other people. So like for me, I go to the gym in the morning. That way when I get home from work and I'm already tired from working all day, I don't have to be like, well, now I got to go to the gym and I don't have time to really hang out with you tonight. No, I am there. Everything's already done. I get to chill out and do whatever the heck I want. But back to the success rate. Are you doing everything possible? The fisherman. Now, this one's a little different because, I mean, obviously, are you using every bait possible? If you are having a tough day out on the water, whether it's bass, perch, snook, crappie, tarpon, whatever the heck you're fishing for, and if you are having a slow day or you're having all dinks being caught, all little tiny fish, are you trying every single bait possible? Because a lot of times, I have a story back in central New Jersey, fishing Milton Lake. I used to fish that. I grew up close to that lake, and when I fished it, I would obviously throw like the general popular baits. So like the Senko, the football jig, a normal rattle trap, a spinner bait, like everything that you could just go to Dick's and buy. I basically threw as a bass fisherman. But my buddy's brother went there and he dead sticked a like 3-inch chartreuse swimming mullet, a gulp swimming mullet, just on the normal hook, and he cast it out there and he dead sticked it. And to an experienced bass fisherman, we're like, what are you doing, man? You're not going to catch anything. You might get a catfish because it smells like crap, that piece of gulp. But that rod bent over and he pulled in a 7-pound largemouth from central New Jersey. And a 7-pounder from New Jersey is basically like a 10, 12 pounder down in Florida. It was crazy to me because stupid things like that stay in my mind forever, because you think you're doing everything possible and you're doing the right stuff, and sometimes something stupid like a 3-inch chartreuse gulp swimming mullet will catch you a fish, because one, largemouth, they get used to what they see every day. So if someone pulls up to where a fish is hiding out under a log every single day, and he flips a green Senko up against that log, a perfect flip, perfect presentation, but he bites it one time and then he goes back to that log, I guarantee you that fish will learn every single time after that thing is danger. But if someone pulls up there and they throw a white fluke at him, that fish will be more inclined to bite that bait. Even down to crappie, calico bass. Normally, for me, on this one lake up in northern New Jersey, I can't divulge on where it is located and what the name of it is, because it's a trophy crappie lake in New Jersey. Normally, they bite a 1-inch bait on its white with a chartreuse tail, and they absolutely annihilate it. And the one day I pull up there, they just do not want it. And I'm like, okay, it's early morning. The water hasn't heated up yet, so I'm going to start trying a whole bunch of different things. And I kind of got away from what I knew. Like, this bait works, and I got away from it. I started throwing Mr. Twisters and little jigs, the different style hair jigs, tiny crankbaits, and I was just getting nothing. I was getting different fish. I was getting little bass and pickerel, and once it got to like 1 p.m., I'm like, okay, well, the water started heating up with the sun. It's a nice day. So I went back over there and I put on my go-to bait, and I started plucking crappie after crappie after crappie. And I was with me and my buddy. We pulled out both of our limits, 20 fish. It's 10 fish a person. And every single fish was over a pound, every single crappie. And now that's like paper plate sized crappies, like 18 inches. I think the biggest crappie we got out of that lake was like 20 inches, and that's an absolute beast, even anywhere in the country. But if you think you're doing the right thing, especially with fishing, you know what? Let's keep that to only fishing. If you guys think you're doing everything right, you probably definitely are not. And that's even with hunting as well. I mean, look at all the guys on the FLW tour. Everyone thinks they're doing everything right, and then there's one guy that's actually doing everything right and just crushing them. And back to hunting, you think that you got them dialed in. You're like, I got this deer patterned to a T. And then for some reason, your mind, you lack the fact that you have a couple dogs and you're wearing your camo all around your house, and now your camo smells like dogs, and there's a wind shift while you're hunting later on, and that wind blows right to your big buck that you're hunting for, and you never see that deer, and you're like, well, I was just off a day. But in all reality, you missed a key factor in your hunt, and you basically just have to stay conscious to every possible thing that happens. And I don't look at a failed hunt a failure. If you want to look at the fact that if you harvest your animal, it's a successful hunt versus you don't harvest your animal, it's a failure. I never view them as failures, especially when I see my game target that I'm trying to get and it doesn't happen. That is one of the biggest learning experiences that you can have. In hunting, there is no knowledge, okay, that you can just Google up. Yes, I can Google how to find white-tailed deer bedding areas, and you will find a whole slew of knowledge that will help you in your quest to learn that aspect. But until you go out into the woods and you find your own white-tailed deer bedding, and you're like, oh, it looks like this, and it clicks in your brain like that's a bedding area. Why were they bedding here? Then you look at all the cover and their vantage points that they could see most of the woods. There's a deer bedded on this side and that side, so they can cover both areas. You learn little things like that. And especially with shed hunting, I could tell you how to find the shed 900 times over, what to look for and everything else. But until you go out there and you find your first shed and your eye finally registers what a shed looks like in the woods in your area that was natural, it's going to be the biggest click in your brain, like the light bulb just went off. And hopefully you stick with that and run with that, and the pattern stays the same and it's not just a fluke. And then your mind, you're going to find a ton of more sheds from there. I have a story from when I was younger with my father. We used to always shed hunt every single year growing up, from like when I was 8 years old and up till I'm doing it now. My father passed away back in 2014, so it's just me doing it now, but he would always bring me out shed hunting in January. Like as soon as January hit and it was like late season, we'd go out and shed hunt and look for sheds. Now, me looking back at that now in New Jersey, them deer didn't lose their antlers for another 2 months. All we were really doing was either finding the year prior's sheds, or we were just getting intel on what deer were in that piece of woods that we couldn't hunt at that point. We probably could have because it was probably winter bow, but I'm not sure. But you guys get the gist of that. We were thinking to our brains that we were shed hunting, but really we were looking for the deer that still had the sheds on their head. So it was kind of like anticlimactic with that. But once I started finding a ton of sheds, like last year, I think I found probably right around 50 sheds. The year before that, I think I found 40. The year before that, I found 63 and then 51. So I found a lot of sheds, especially for a New Jersey resident or someone that shed hunts New Jersey solely alone. Finding 50 plus sheds is insane to most people. Now you go out to like Colorado or Missouri and you shed hunt, that's probably like a minuscule number for the year. But yeah, you have to do things until stuff clicks. I remember the first time when I was trying to learn bass fishing, and I read an article, and this is back in like 2010 maybe, probably before that. But I was trying to learn where bass like to hang out, largemouth bass. And I found an article from way back when that bass like the shade. And I would always just go out and cast my lure around until I luckily caught one. But I remember this one sunny day, there was a hard shade line. And I just clicked in my brain, and I was like, I read that somewhere that they like the shade. They like sitting in the shade because it doesn't strain their eyes. If their prey is in the sunlight, they could see their prey better than the prey can see them. So they hang out in there and they ambush them. So I first flip into the shade. I think I was throwing a weightless flapping hog by Gary Yamamoto on a 3/0 offset worm hook. And I casted it right on that shade line, maybe like a foot in, and just kind of let it sink to the bottom. And I was watching my bait, and my line was going from where I casted about 10 foot out to the right. And I was like, what the heck? So I reeled down, set the hook, and it was like a 3-pound bass. And from that moment, the shade finally registered. I understood it. Now, if you ask anyone older or more knowledgeable about it, they're like, yeah, it's the shade. It's obvious. But at that point in time, I have read it. I have heard it. But I finally executed on it. And it's a staple in a fishing tactic. So try and get out there and learn everything for yourself versus you just doing solely reading. Now, reading on it and getting a direction to head towards is definitely good. If you want to learn everything possible to better your success rate, then reading and watching every article or video that you could find that is actually informational, then that is definitely a very, very good tactic to do. I often hear the excuse that people don't have time to get into the woods to bait or check their cameras daily or every other day, or for me, twice a week if I could. I have a buddy that lives North Jersey. He will run his trail cameras at 2 a.m., like 10 cameras, if he knows that he will not be able to check them later in the day because he has a couple kids and he's the owner of a business and he has a different job. He has 2 jobs and he has a couple kids and a wife. So that right there alone limits your time dramatically. So what he does, because he's an avid hunter, he will check all of his cameras from 2 a.m. until it finishes. He loses out on sleep, but he gets it done. He gets to still be very efficient in the woods. Now, if you ask anyone else, well, you say you don't have time or you didn't have time to check your camera today or bait your spot today. It's like, well, why don't you go now while you're not doing anything, sitting on the couch watching a movie, drinking a beer? And it's like, it's dark out. Well, if you really wanted to do it, you definitely could go out there and check your camera and bait your spot. Don't let your mind hold you back on certain things, and try everything new at some point, especially if you're in a spot. Let's say you're in one of your favorite hunting spots and you only go right from your truck right to your stand every single time for the past 5 years. And now you're successful there, but let's say the past 2 years out of the past 5, you've had deer on camera, but you haven't really had anything big on camera, or you've had it big and now they're nocturnal when you used to be super successful in that stand location. Well, generally, humans are creatures of habits, and we do the exact same thing because it's what we know and it's what we're comfortable with. Try moving, or you know what? The first step in that situation, go put out 2 or 3 more cameras just on heavy trails or scrapes or maybe a tiny bit of food or whatever it is. Just put out a couple cameras, maybe 300 yards apart. So if you have 3 cameras, put one 300 yards from your spot, another 3, and what you could do to find the big bucks. And then at that point, you might find that one absolute giant buck is hanging out 600 yards away, 2 trail cameras away, and he won't come any closer, but he's there during the daylight, and all you have to do is go move your stand or make a spot and stalk or however you hunt and get in there. But you would have never known that buck hangs out there unless you did the extra work and you hung the extra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trail cameras. Now, if money's limited on that aspect, then if you could only afford 1 camera, 1 stand, and the bait that you have for it, then just go out and take a walk. Walk with your binos, see what you see. Look for rubs, scrapes, a lot of deer crap, to say it frank, a lot of deer crap, a lot of tracks, big tracks, sheds even, just anything that will help you. And if you have time, instead of sitting on the couch, if this is something you're very passionate about and you want to kill the biggest deer of your life this year, or if you want to catch the biggest fish of your life this year, then you have to do a ton of homework and scouting and everything if you really want to get at that. Back to the fishermen. Like for me, I just moved down to Florida. I've been down here for a couple months now. And one of my biggest things that I want to accomplish while I'm down here is that I want to, 1, break my personal best largemouth, and 2, catch a double-digit largemouth. And as of right now, I think the biggest fish I've caught down here was like a 5-pounder. And that's nothing. That's like a 2-pounder for Jersey. But I have been, it's not for the lack of work. I've been hitting every body of fresh water and even brackish water down here trying to get on monster bass. And I'll ask locals, I'll ask everyone that I see on the river, what's the best thing to use down here, color, and even if they just give me a straight answer like, well, you use the lure and you cast in the water, like something stupid like that, but I will ask everyone for one knowledgeable piece of information like, okay, they only eat live bait here, or the best time is during the rain down here at this spot, and this spot sucks, there's only tilapia down here. Like, just any knowledge I can gain it only benefits me. I kind of relate that theory to the people that rag on me about having private property to hunt, when they're like, well, how you guys hunt private property? And it's like, so could you. You just don't put in the work. You don't have to know someone directly that's a friend or family member to only hunt private property. It's like applying for a job. You apply to 10 different jobs, and if they say no, then boo-hoo, you move on to the next one. If you knock on 100 doors to ask them to hunt, what's the worst they say? No. That's about the worst they could say. Get off my property. All it takes is one yes out of 100 no's, and you could have the best hunting spot of your entire life. And I try and pull that back into what the hell was I just talking about? Crap, I kind of forgot what I was just talking about early in the morning. Shit. Oh. Now, I tie that back into asking all the locals for their tips or opinions on where to go and where not to go. Because if they give me a smart-ass answer, then hopefully one person will just say, this is the best spot for double-digit largemouth or 6-pound largemouths or whatever it is. And if he shows me all the pictures from that spot and he's actually serious and he's like, if you fish this all year, you will catch a double-digit bass, I will fish that spot every single day until my fingers and feet bleed. Because it's guaranteed. He shows me the pictures of 12-pound bass out of there every single year he catches. So why wouldn't I go fish there? So ask if you're fishing and if you're newer to it, or even if you're not new to it and you're just trying to get a little bit of information, like going to the tackle shop. While you're at the tackle shop buying bait, what's the harm of asking the guy, hey, have you been catching any snook? Have you been catching any trout? Whatever you're fishing for. If the worst he says is, no, it sucks, and he's lying, then you go out there and you try for yourself, and you could slay, or he was right. Or if he's telling the truth, that let's say you ask him and he's like, oh, they're killing it down on the North Shore off this point on this wreck, and you go out there and you actually just slay it and you have the best day of your life, then taking that 30 seconds out of your day to ask the guy, have you been having any luck? Have you had people have any luck lately? Or what's the bait that they're hitting lately? You take 30 seconds out of your day just to ask someone a question, and it actually comes through, then boom, that just made your day, versus what you might have done, go somewhere completely different with a completely different bait and not catch a single thing. So just try and do everything possible to better your success rate. Internet, YouTube videos, articles, local knowledge, or just plain experience that you finally learned something from. You guys, just try and do absolutely everything possible. Today, we're probably not going to make it to an hour. We are just hitting the 40-minute mark. And I think that was a good way to start the first FLT episode. I'm about done with my coffee. I'm about to go make another cup. So you guys have a fabulous day. Thank you guys for listening. And if you guys are listening not in the morning, if it's like 3 p.m. for you and you guys are listening, welcome. Be sure to tune in for tomorrow's FLT, 5 a.m. Or I haven't figured out when I'm posting it yet. Maybe I'll be posting it by like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock if I could. But yeah, be sure to tune in tomorrow and check out tomorrow's FLT video. And I hope you guys have learned something. Leave a comment if you are seeing this on Instagram or Facebook, if you liked it or disliked it. If you guys are listening to this on YouTube, subscribe, leave a comment. And if you guys are listening to this on any type of podcast or music platform, be sure to hit the share button and let your buddies know to take a listen to this new podcast. And thank you guys. Have a great day. And if you guys are hunting or fishing, get after it. Get a big buck. Catch the biggest fish of your life and stay after it. Thanks, guys. I am Mike, obviously Outdoorsman. Peace until tomorrow.